The laughter echoed down the school hallway, sharp and cruel against the background chatter of students between classes. Mateo Reyes kept his eyes forward, shoulders slightly hunched, textbooks clutched tightly to his chest. Just 3 more classes, he told himself. 3 more classes, then home. Just get through day 1. "Hey, new kid!" the voice boomed from behind him. Mateo didn't turn around. Maybe if he pretended not to hear. A hand clamped down on his shoulder, spinning him around. Mateo found himself face to face with a tall, broad-shouldered boy with close-cropped blonde hair and a smirk that had clearly been perfected through years of practice. "I'm talking to you, amigo." The boy dragged out the last word, looking back at his friends who snickered on cue. "Don't they teach you English where you're from?" Mateo took a deep breath. "I hear you fine," he said quietly, his accent barely noticeable. "I need to get to class." The boy, clearly the leader, raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. "Wow, he does speak English, but you've got a little accent there, don't you? What's your name again?" "Mateo." "Mateo," the boy repeated, exaggerating each syllable. "I'm Derek, captain of the wrestling team. Welcome to Westlake High." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Where are you from, Mateo? Just hop over the border." Mateo's grip tightened on his textbooks. "I moved here from San Diego." One of Derek's friends, a lanky boy with a basketball jersey, laughed. "Yeah, but before that, Mexico, El Salvador? Where do your people come from?" Mateo glanced at the clock on the wall. 2 minutes until the late bell. "My family is from Guatemala," he said, "but I was born in California." Derek nodded slowly as if Mateo had confirmed something important. "Guatemala, huh? Never heard of it. Must be pretty tiny. Like you." He looked Mateo up and down, taking in his medium height and slender build. "What are you? Like 100 pounds soaking wet?" The boys around him snickered again. Mateo said nothing. Silence was safer. His grandfather had taught him that, along with many other lessons. "What's in the backpack, Guatemala?" Derek reached for the black gym bag slung over Mateo's shoulder. "Probably tacos for lunch, right? Or those little bean things." In one fluid motion, Mateo stepped back, shifting the bag out of Derek's reach. The movement was so smooth, so controlled, that Derek blinked in surprise. "Just gym clothes," Mateo said. The late bell rang, shrill and insistent. "I have to go." He turned and walked away, feeling their eyes on his back, hearing their muffled comments and laughter. It wasn't the first time he'd faced this, and it probably wouldn't be the last. New school, same story. Behind him, Derek called out, "See you around, Guatemala." More laughter. Mateo kept walking. By lunch period, word had spread about the new Mexican kid. Mateo could feel the stares as he entered the cafeteria, tray in hand, scanning for an empty table. Most were already filled with tight-knit groups who'd known each other since elementary school. Westlake wasn't a big town, and newcomers stood out, especially newcomers who looked different, who spoke with even the slightest accent. He spotted a table in the corner with just one occupant, a girl with curly hair pulled into a messy bun, her head bent over a book. Mateo approached cautiously. "Excuse me," he said. "Is it okay if I sit here?" The girl looked up, slightly startled. "Oh, yeah, sure." She moved her backpack to make room. "You're new, right?" Mateo nodded as he sat down. "First day." "I'm Zoe," she said. "Junior, chronically antisocial, according to my mum." Despite himself, Mateo smiled. Mateo, also junior. Zoe studied him for a moment. "You've already met Derek and his minions, haven't you?" Mateo's smile faded. "Word travels fast." "Small school," she shrugged, "and they're not exactly subtle." She nodded toward a table across the cafeteria where Derek and his friends were holding court, occasionally glancing in Mateo's direction. "Just ignore them, they're like dogs. They chase what runs." "I'm not planning to run," Mateo said quietly. "Or chase. I just want to get through the year." Zoe returned to her book, something with a dragon on the cover, but not before adding, "Good luck with that. They don't exactly let people just get through anything around here." As if on cue, Derek's voice boomed across the cafeteria. "Yo, Guatemala, made a friend already?" Several heads turned to look. "Better watch out, Zoe. He might try to mow your lawn." Laughter rippled through nearby tables. Mateo kept his eyes on his food, his face carefully blank. Zoe rolled her eyes. Wow, racist and unoriginal. What a winning combination. It's fine, Mateo said. I've heard worse. That doesn't make it okay, Zoe replied, but dropped the subject when she saw Mateo's closed expression. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes before Zoe spoke again. So where did you move from? San Diego, Mateo answered. My mum got a job at the hospital here. She's a nurse. Cool. My mum teaches 3rd grade at Westlake Elementary, Zoe said. What about your dad? Mateo's face tightened almost imperceptibly. It's just me and my mum, and my grandfather, but he's still in San Diego. Zoe nodded, not pushing further. Well, if you need someone to show you around town, I can help. It'll take about 10 minutes. That's how small this place is. Mateo smiled again, and Zoe noticed how it transformed his serious face. Thanks, I might take you up on that. The rest of the day passed without major incident. A few comments in the hallway, some whispers in class, but nothing Mateo couldn't handle. By the final bell, he was cautiously optimistic. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. That hope evaporated as he walked toward the gym after school. He'd arranged to meet with the PE teacher about joining the track team. Running had always been his outlet, his way of clearing his mind. As he rounded the corner, he spotted Derek and 4 of his friends leaning against the wall near the gym entrance. Mateo considered turning around, finding another way in, but it was too late. Derek had spotted him. Look who it is, boys. Guatemala. Himself. Derek pushed off from the wall, blocking Mateo's path. Where are you headed, little man? Kitchen's the other way. Mateo kept his voice neutral. I have a meeting with Coach Taylor. Oh, you have a meeting, Derek mimicked, drawing laughs from his friends. What for? They hiring janitors? Track team, Mateo answered simply, trying to step around him. Derek moved to block him again. Track team? What, you think you can run fast because you jumped the border? His friends snickered, emboldened by their leader's cruelty. Mateo felt heat rising in his chest, but kept his breathing. Steady, his face calm. I was born in California, he repeated. Excuse me, I'm going to be late. He tried once more to step around Derek, but this time the larger boy shoved him back, not hard enough to knock him down, but enough to make a point. We don't need any more foreigners on our sports teams, Derek said, his voice losing its mocking tone, turning harder. Taking spots from people who actually belong here. Mateo's black gym bag slipped from his shoulder, landing on the ground with a soft thud. One of Derek's friends, the basketball player from earlier, reached for it. What's in here anyway? Let's see what Guatemala's hiding. Mateo's hand shot out, catching the boy's wrist before he could grab the bag. The movement was lightning. Fast, precise. The boy's eyes widened in surprise. Don't touch my bag, Mateo said quietly. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the boy yanked his arm away, rubbing his wrist with an expression of disbelief. What the hell, man? You trying to break my arm or something? Derek's eyes narrowed. You've got some nerve, newbie. Maybe you need to learn how things work around here. He stepped closer, crowding into Mateo's space. Mateo didn't back away, but he didn't raise his hands either. His grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. True strength is knowing when not to fight. Is there a problem here? A sharp voice cut through the tension. Coach Taylor stood in the gym doorway, arms crossed over his broad chest, expression stern. Derek immediately stepped back, his demeanor shifting. No problem, Coach, just welcoming the new kid. Coach Taylor's eyes flicked between Derek and Mateo, clearly not buying it. Mateo, right? I've been waiting for you. Come on in. He turned to Derek and his friends. Don't you boys have practice? Derek nodded reluctantly. Yes, Coach, we were just heading to the field. Then I suggest you get moving. Coach Taylor's tone left no room for argument. As Mateo picked up his gym bag and followed Coach Taylor into the gym, Derek called after him, voice low enough that the coach wouldn't hear. This isn't over, Guatemala. Not even close. Mateo didn't look back. The meeting with Coach Taylor went well. After seeing Mateo's previous track records from San Diego, multiple city championships in the 800 meters and 1500 meters events, the coach was eager to have him join the team. By the time they finished discussing practice schedules and upcoming meets, the school had emptied out. Mateo walked alone through the quiet hallways, his footsteps echoing on the linoleum floor. His phone buzzed with a text from his mom. Working. Late shift. Dinner in fridge. Love you. He texted back a quick reply, then pushed open the main doors into the afternoon sunlight. The parking lot was mostly empty now, just a few cars belonging to teachers and students in after-school activities. Mateo had walked about halfway across the lot when he heard them, footsteps, multiple sets, coming up behind him. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Hey, Guatemala, we weren't done talking. Mateo kept walking, picking up his pace slightly. The footsteps behind him quickened, too. Don't you ignore me, new kid. A hand grabbed his shoulder, roughly spinning him around. Derek stood there, flanked by 5 friends now, their faces set with a purpose that made Mateo's stomach tighten. You think you're tough, huh? Derek's voice was low, dangerous. Grabbing Jason's arm like that? Disrespecting us in front of Coach? Mateo looked from face to face. No teachers around, no witnesses, just him and 6 boys who clearly had something to prove. I don't want trouble, Mateo said evenly. Derek barked out a laugh. Should have thought of that before you came to our school. He stepped closer. In case you haven't figured it out yet, I run things here, and I decide who fits in and who doesn't. Mateo remained silent, calculating distances, angles, possible escape routes, but they had formed a loose circle around him now, cutting off easy exits. Nothing to say, Guatemala, Derek taunted. No comeback? No clever words in Spanish? I told you, Mateo said, his voice still calm. I was born in California. I'm American, just like you. You're nothing like me, Derek spat. Then, without warning, he shoved Mateo hard in the chest. Mateo stumbled back a step but didn't fall. His gym bag slipped from his shoulder again, hitting the ground. Pick it up, Derek ordered. Pick it up and beg us to let you go. Mateo looked at the bag, then back at Derek. No. Something flashed in Derek's eyes, surprise perhaps, or anger at being defied. Wrong answer. He lunged forward, swinging a fist aimed directly at Mateo's face. What happened next was so fast that none of the boys would later agree on the exact sequence. Mateo's body seemed to flow like water. He shifted slightly to the right, Derek's fist missing his face by centimeters. In the same motion, Mateo's hand caught Derek's extended arm, redirecting its momentum. Suddenly, inexplicably, Derek was off balance, stumbling forward, then down to one knee. The circle of boys froze in confusion. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Derek scrambled to his feet, face flushed with embarrassment and rage. You little... He charged again, more recklessly this time. Mateo sidestepped, his movements precise, economical. No wasted energy. No dramatic gestures, just fluid practice technique. Derek found himself stumbling past Mateo, nearly falling again. What the hell? One of the other boys muttered. Derek spun around, fury in his eyes. Get him! 2 boys rushed forward together. Mateo dropped his center of gravity, hands finally coming up into a defensive posture that none of them recognized. Not quite boxing, not quite karate. As the boys reached him, Mateo moved again, slipping between them like smoke, using their own momentum to send them colliding into each other. The remaining boys hesitated, suddenly uncertain. He's like Neo or something, one whispered. Derek wasn't having it. There's 6 of us and 1 of him. What are you waiting for? They rushed him all at once. For several seconds, the parking lot was a blur of motion. Boys lunging, swinging, grappling, and Mateo, always just out of reach, always one step ahead, his movements reminiscent of an elaborate dance. He never struck back, never threw a punch or a kick. He simply wasn't where their fists tried to land, wasn't where they tried to grab him, and then, as quickly as it had started, it was over. 4 boys sat or lay on the asphalt, dazed and winded. One leaned against a car, clutching his side where he'd collided with a side mirror. Derek alone remained standing, facing Mateo with wide, disbelieving eyes. What are you? He gasped. Mateo calmly picked up his gym bag, brushing off some dust. He unzipped it partway, revealing what was inside, a neatly folded white uniform with a black belt coiled on top. I train with my grandfather, Mateo said simply. He's a 7th-degree black belt in Kajukenbo. He started teaching me when I was 4. He zipped the bag closed again. I have a national championship title. Well, 3, actually. Derek stared at him, then at his friends scattered across the parking lot, then back at Mateo. For once, he seemed at a loss for words. I don't want trouble, Mateo repeated, exactly as he had before the fight. I just want to get through the year. He turned and began walking away, then paused, looking back over his shoulder. And my family is from Guatemala. It's in Central America. You should look it up sometime. As Mateo continued walking, he heard hurried footsteps behind him and tensed, ready to defend himself again. But it was just one person this time. He turned to see the basketball player, Jason, jogging to catch up, a strange expression on his face. Hey, wait up, Jason called, slowing as he approached. He kept a cautious distance. That was insane. What you did back there. Mateo said nothing, waiting. Look, Jason glanced back at his friends, who were slowly picking themselves up off the ground. I don't even know what to say. I've never seen anything like that. I should go, Mateo said, turning to leave again. Wait, Jason said quickly. I wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier. The things we said. He looked genuinely uncomfortable now. It wasn't cool. Mateo studied him for a moment. No, it wasn't. Jason nodded, accepting the rebuke. So you're really a champion fighter, huh? That's pretty awesome. I don't fight, Mateo corrected him. I train, I compete, I practice. Self-defense, there's a difference. Right, yeah, that makes sense. Jason shuffled his feet. So, are you going to tell the principal about what happened? Mateo considered this. Not if it stops, all of it stops. The comments, the harassment, everything. Jason nodded quickly. Yeah, definitely. It's done. He hesitated, then added, You know, Derek's not always such a jerk. He's just, I don't know, his dad's really intense about him being the top dog, you know? Like, puts a lot of pressure on him. That's not an excuse, Mateo said firmly. No, you're right, it's not, Jason agreed. I'm just saying, people are complicated, I guess. Mateo thought about his grandfather's words again. Judge actions. Not people, actions can change. I should go, he said again. My mom's waiting. Yeah, sure. Jason stepped back. But hey, would you could you show me some of those moves sometime? That was seriously the coolest thing I've ever seen. For the first time, Mateo's serious expression cracked into a small smile. Maybe, if you're serious about learning. Totally serious, Jason insisted. Then, after a brief hesitation, So? See you tomorrow? In school? Mateo nodded. See you tomorrow. As he walked home, Mateo took out his phone and called his grandfather. When the old man's familiar voice answered, Mateo switched to Spanish. Abuelo, he said. Something happened today. Tell me, his grandfather replied, his voice steady as always. Mateo recounted the events of the day, the bullying, the confrontation, the fight that wasn't really a fight. When he finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Are you angry with me, Abuelo? Mateo asked finally. For using what you taught me? No, my boy, came the gentle reply. You used restraint. You protected yourself without harming others. That is exactly what I taught you. A pause. But remember, the greatest victory is the one where no blow is struck at all. I tried that first, Mateo said. I know you did. And tomorrow you will try again, with dignity, with respect, for yourself and for others, even those who have not yet learned to show you the same. Yes, Abuelo. Your mother works too hard for you to be getting into trouble, his grandfather added, a hint of sternness entering his voice. I know I won't. Good. Now tell me about this track team. Are they fast? Do they have good coaches? As Mateo continued the conversation, describing his meeting with Coach Taylor and the upcoming track season, he felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. One day down. Maybe tomorrow would be better. The next morning, Mateo walked through the school entrance with trepidation. Word would have spread about what happened in the parking lot. It always did in small towns. He wasn't sure what awaited him. He didn't have to wait long to find out. As he approached his locker, Conversations hushed. Students glanced his way, then quickly looked away when he met their eyes. Some whispered behind their hands, but no one approached him. No one called out names or made comments until Zoe appeared, grinning widely. "Well, if it isn't the karate kid himself," she said, leaning against the locker next to his. "Or should I say Kajukenbo kid? That doesn't have quite the same ring to it." Mateo groaned. "News travels fast." "Are you kidding? It's all anyone can talk about. New kid takes down Derek and his entire crew without throwing a single punch. You're a legend after just one day." Her eyes twinkled with amusement. "Though I'm pretty sure the story has already been exaggerated. Current version has you fighting off 20 guys while blindfolded." Mateo couldn't help but smile. "It wasn't like that." "Oh, I know. Jason told me what really happened. He's my lab partner in chemistry. Says you were like water. His words, not mine." Zoe studied him with newfound interest. "Why didn't you mention you were a martial arts prodigy yesterday at lunch?" Mateo shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "It's not something I usually talk about. My grandfather taught me for self-defense, not to show off." "Well, your secret's out now," Zoe said. "Prepare for everyone to suddenly want to be your new best friend." As if on cue, a group of students walked by, several of them smiling and nodding at Mateo in greeting. He nodded back, bewildered by the change. "See?" Zoe laughed. "Instant popularity." "It's like high school magic." Mateo shook his head. "I don't want popularity, I just want to get through the year, I know," Zoe finished for him. "But maybe you'll do more than that, maybe you'll actually enjoy it." Before Mateo could respond, a hush fell over the hallway. Students parted like the Red Sea as Derek walked toward them alone for once. His usual swagger was subdued, his expression unreadable. Mateo straightened, ready for whatever might come next. Zoe tensed beside him. Derek stopped a few feet away, hands shoved deep in his pockets. For a long moment he just stood there, as if working up the courage to speak. Finally, he took a deep breath. "Can I talk to you?" he asked Mateo. His voice was quiet, with none of yesterday's mockery. Alone, Mateo exchanged a glance with Zoe, who raised her eyebrows in a silent question. "Do you want me to stay?" Mateo gave a small nod to Derek. "It's okay," he told Zoe. "I'll catch up with you later." Zoe hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be right down the hall if you need me," she said pointedly, before walking away. Once she was gone, an awkward silence stretched between the two boys. Around them, other students pretended not to watch while obviously straining to hear what would be said. "Let's talk somewhere else," Mateo suggested, nodding toward an empty classroom nearby. Derek followed him into the room. Once the door closed behind them, shutting out the curious stares, he seemed to deflate slightly, leaning against a desk with a heavy sigh. "I talked to my dad last night," he began, eyes fixed on the floor. "Told him what happened. Thought he'd be pissed, you know, that I got—" He searched for the right word. "Outmaneuvered by the new kid." Mateo waited, saying nothing. "But he wasn't mad," Derek continued. "He just asked if I'd apologized yet." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "First time in my life my old man's asked me that." He finally looked up, meeting Mateo's eyes. "My dad's a Marine, 20 years in. He's all about respect, honor, that kind of stuff. But somewhere along the way I think I mixed up being strong with being—" He trailed off. "A bully?" Mateo supplied. Derek winced but nodded. "Yeah, that." He straightened up, squaring his shoulders. "Anyway, I'm sorry. For the things I said. For trying to jump you. All of it." The apology seemed genuine, if difficult, for him to get out. Mateo considered him for a moment before responding. "Why did you target me?" he asked simply. "You don't even know me." Derek ran a hand through his short hair, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "I don't know, man. It's always been like that here. My dad says this town's stuck in the past sometimes." He shook his head. "That's not an excuse, I know that." "No, it's not," Mateo agreed. "Look, I'm trying to apologize here," Derek said, a flash of his old defensiveness returning before he caught himself. "Sorry, you're right." He took another deep breath. The truth is, my dad was really disappointed in me. Said a real warrior respects everyone until they give him reason not to. Said I dishonored myself. He looked so genuinely distressed by this that Matteo felt his anger softening. My grandfather says something similar, he offered. He says respect isn't earned. It's the default. Disrespect is what's earned. Derek nodded slowly. Your grandfather taught you to fight like that? He taught me how not to fight, Matteo corrected. Everything I did yesterday was defensive. I never threw a punch. Yeah, I noticed, Derek said ruefully, rubbing his shoulder. Somehow that makes it worse. You could have really hurt us, but you didn't. The first bell rang, warning students to head to class. Neither boy moved. So, what happens now? Matteo asked. Derek shrugged. I don't know, I've never been in this situation before. He hesitated, then added, but I meant what I said. What I did was wrong, and it won't happen again. Not to you, not to anyone else. Matteo studied him, remembering his grandfather's words about judging actions, not people. Okay, he said finally. Then as far as I'm concerned, we're good. Relief washed over Derek's face. Really? Just like that? Just like that. Matteo confirmed. But I'm holding you to what you said. About it not happening to anyone else either. Derek nodded, understanding the implied responsibility. Yeah, I get it. He straightened up, extending his hand. So, clean slate? Matteo hesitated only briefly before shaking his hand. Clean slate. As they headed for the door, Derek paused with his hand on the knob. Hey, I heard you're joining the track team. Matteo nodded. I'm guessing with those moves you're pretty fast. Fast enough, Matteo said with a small smile. Our relay team could use someone like you, Derek said, if you're interested. The offer seemed to surprise them both. But as Matteo considered it, he realized that perhaps this was how healing began. Not with grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but with small steps towards something better. I'll think about it, he said. When they walked out of the classroom together, side by side rather than as adversaries, the watching students fell into shocked silence. Zoe, waiting nearby as promised, raised her eyebrows so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. Well, that's not what I expected, she murmured as Matteo joined her. Me neither, Matteo admitted. As they walked to class together, he felt something shift inside him, a tension he'd been carrying for so long he'd almost forgotten it was there. Maybe this year wouldn't just be about getting through. Maybe, just maybe, it would be about something more. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a text from his grandfather, as if the old man somehow knew what had just transpired. Remember, Matteo, true victory is turning an enemy into a friend. Matteo smiled to himself. For the first time since arriving in Westlake, he felt like he might be exactly where he needed to be. Have you ever seen someone completely misjudged based on their appearance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more inspiring stories about finding strength in unexpected places and the power of rising above prejudice with dignity.